My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a senior data analyst for a mid-sized tech company. I've always been good at seeing patterns, at connecting seemingly disparate pieces of information until a clear picture emerges. It's a skill that serves me well professionally, but I never imagined it would be the key to unlocking a betrayal in my own home, whispered into existence by my 7-year-old daughter. It was a Tuesday evening, a little over 6 months ago. Mark, my fiancé, and I were having dinner with my daughter, Lily, at our usual Italian place. We'd just gotten a flat tire on the way there, a minor inconvenience that had put us 10 minutes behind. As I sighed, looking at the menu, Mark chuckled, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Always something, isn't it, babe?" he said, his voice low, almost playful. "Sometimes I think you're my little bad luck charm." Lily, who was meticulously arranging her fettuccine into a small mound, paused, her bright blue eyes flicking between us. I forced a smile, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. It was a joke, I told myself, just a silly comment. But the way he said it, the faint edge of something I couldn't quite name, made the knot twist. I dismissed it, ordered my usual, and tried to focus on Lily's chatter. What I didn't understand yet was that this seemingly innocent remark wasn't just a joke, it was a carefully placed brick in a wall of deception that my observant daughter would soon dismantle, piece by agonizing piece. To understand why I let that comment slide, you need to know about Mark. We met 3 years ago through a mutual friend. He was charming, effortlessly funny, and incredibly attentive, especially to Lily. As a single mom, that last part meant the world to me. He'd bring her little gifts, read her bedtime stories, and genuinely seemed to enjoy her company. He worked in investment consulting, a field that always sounded a little vague to me, but he talked passionately about big deals and future successes. He was still building his portfolio, he'd explain, so his income was a bit inconsistent, but he promised it was all going to pay off soon. My stable job and careful budgeting meant we were comfortable, and I was happy to support him during his growth phase. I saw it as a partnership, a commitment to building a life together. He proposed 6 months before that fateful dinner, with a beautiful antique ring he said had been his grandmother's. Lily was ecstatic, drawing pictures of our wedding family. I was happy, too, or at least, I thought I was. Mark was everything I thought I wanted: handsome, kind to my daughter, and ambitious. He often spoke about how important trust and honesty were in a relationship, especially after his previous, messy divorce. He said he'd been burned by a dishonest partner, and that he valued my straightforward nature. Over the next few months, after the engagement, the bad luck comments started to trickle in, always subtle, always framed as a joke or a loving tease. If my car had a flat, it was my bad luck striking again. If a client at work was difficult, he'd shrug and say, "Guess you just attract that kind of energy, huh?" They were never overtly mean, but they created a low hum of unease. At the same time, his financial growth phase seemed to stall. He'd often need a little extra cash for urgent business expenses or to bridge a gap until a big deal closed. He never explicitly asked for large sums, but he'd complain about his own terrible luck with investments, or how a client had unexpectedly pulled out, and then casually mention a bill that was due. I'd always cover it, thinking that soon, his big break would come, and we'd be set. He was good at making me feel like we were a team, facing the world together, even if I was carrying more of the load right then. One evening, about a month after the Italian restaurant incident, Mark received a call while we were watching a movie. He excused himself, stepping into the hallway. I heard snippets. "Yeah, she's here." "No, I can't talk right now." "Later, I'll call you later, I promise." He returned, looking a little flustered. "Just work stuff," he said, brushing it off. "Dealing with a tricky client." But his phone was suddenly glued to his side, and he started taking more calls outside, or turning his screen away from me. He'd also started spending a lot of time with a new business partner named Ashley. Ashley, he explained, was a high-net-worth investor who was keen on his latest venture. He was always at meetings with Ashley, or at dinners discussing strategy. I never met Ashley, despite my gentle suggestions. "She's very private," Mark would say. "And a bit superstitious about mixing business with personal life, especially early on." He even hinted that Ashley was a little wary of bad luck, which was why he needed to keep things very professional and discreet. The comment stung, connecting back to his earlier remarks about me. Lily, meanwhile, was thriving. She was a bright, imaginative child, and she loved to draw. Her current obsession was creating elaborate family portraits and house plans. One Saturday, Mark was supposedly meeting Ashley for a working brunch. Lily and I were having breakfast when she piped up, "Mommy, Mark says Ashley is going to help him buy a house. A really big one, with a pool." My spoon clattered against the bowl. "Oh, really?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "And where is this house going to be?" Lily shrugged. "Somewhere warm," he said. "And it's our secret. He said you're bad luck, so we can't tell you about it, or the deal will fall through." The blood drained from my face. "He said what, sweetie?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Lily looked up, her brow furrowed. "He said you're bad luck, so it's a secret. But it's going to be a really nice house for him and Ashley, and maybe me sometimes." She said it with such innocent conviction, like it was a perfectly normal thing for a fiancé to say about his partner. That was when the number stopped looking accidental, and the patterns became terrifyingly clear. Mark wasn't just having bad luck, he was building a separate life, and he was using me, and my money, to fund it. The bad luck narrative was his way of distancing himself, of emotionally disengaging while still benefiting from my stability. My analytical mind, usually so good at finding discrepancies in spreadsheets, had been blinded by my heart. Lily's words were a cold splash of water, instantly clarifying everything. The secret of phone calls, the vague business ventures, the constant need for loans, the never-met business partner Ashley, it all clicked into place. He wasn't just cheating, he was actively planning a future with someone else, while keeping me on the hook, literally and figuratively. I didn't confront him immediately. My first instinct was to protect Lily. I reassured her that she was not bad luck, and that Mark was wrong to say such things. Then, I began to prepare. My job as a data analyst had taught me the importance of documentation. I started reviewing our joint finances, my personal bank statements, and any texts or emails where he'd mentioned loans or expenses. I subtly changed the passwords on our shared streaming accounts and Wi-Fi, just in case. I also made sure my personal assets were secured and separate from anything he might have access to. I even looked up public records for property sales in warm places that might fit his vague descriptions. I found nothing concrete, but the financial paper trail was enough to show a clear pattern of him taking money from me without repayment, always under the guise of business. The decisive action came a week later. Mark arrived home, whistling, carrying a small bouquet of flowers for me. "Rough day, babe?" he asked, trying to kiss me. I pulled back. "Mark," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk. About Ashley. And the house." His smile faltered. "Ashley? What about Ashley? She's my business partner, you know that." He tried to sound casual, but his eyes darted away. "No," I said, "I know she's more than that. I know you're planning a life with her, a new house in a warm place. And I know you've been telling Lily that I'm bad luck to keep it a secret from me." His face went pale. "Sarah, what are you talking about? Lily's a child, she makes things up. You're putting ideas in her head." He tried to turn it around, to make me doubt myself. "This is exactly what I mean, you always jump to conclusions, you're so negative sometimes. That's why things never work out for you." "Don't you dare," I cut him off, my voice rising slightly, "don't you dare try to gaslight me, Mark. Lily told me everything. She told me you told her I was bad luck, so you had to keep your plans with Ashley a secret from me. My 7-year-old daughter, who you supposedly care about, exposed your secret because you weaponized her innocence against me." I pushed a printed bank statement across the table. "This is a record of every loan I've given you, every bill I've covered, totaling over $20,000. Money you've used to fund your business ventures and, I can only assume, your plans with Ashley. This isn't bad luck, Mark. This is calculated manipulation and betrayal." He started to stammer, to deny, to accuse me of being jealous and paranoid. He even tried to blame Lily, saying she misunderstood. But I didn't let him. I had seen the pattern, and Lily had given me the missing data point. I ended the engagement right there. I took off the antique ring, placing it carefully on the table. "This is over," I said, my voice shaking slightly, but firm. "You can leave now. And don't contact me again, or Lily. If I find out you've tried to contact her, I will take legal action." He tried one last desperate plea, tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. He stormed out, slamming the door, leaving the flowers on the table. The silence that followed was deafening, then slowly, it began to feel like peace. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of practicalities. I had to explain to Lily, in an age-appropriate way, that Mark wouldn't be living with us anymore because he hadn't been honest. She was sad, of course, but she also seemed to understand, in her own way, that something wasn't right with Mark. I returned the engagement ring to him via a mutual friend, telling her only that it wasn't working out. I didn't air all the dirty laundry publicly, but I did confide in a few close friends, who were shocked and supportive. They helped me see that his bad luck comments weren't just harmless teasing, they were a form of emotional abuse, designed to chip away at my self-worth and deflect from his own deceit. The financial fallout was minimal, thanks to my careful preparation. He hadn't managed to get access to any of my major assets. The $20,000 I'd given him was a painful loss, but I considered it the cost of a very valuable lesson. I never heard from Mark again, and I never found out what happened with Ashley or his new house. I didn't need to. The knowledge that I had protected myself and, more importantly, Lily, was enough. A few months later, Lily drew a new family portrait. It was just her and me, holding hands, smiling. In the corner, she'd drawn a little four-leaf clover. "See, Mommy," she said, pointing to it. "We're good luck." I hugged her tight. The word luck had once been a weapon, a subtle poison in my relationship. Now, it was a quiet affirmation, a reminder that sometimes, the most profound truths come from the most innocent voices, and that the real good fortune is knowing who truly belongs in your picture.